Now, let me introduce your speaker for today, Senior IT Security Analyst Jeff Gouge. Along with him today, we have Gunnar Lake, IT Security Analyst, Jeff Whitaker, IT Security Engineer, Monica Brown, IT Security Analyst, and just in case, we have Robert Stewart, Assistant Director, Information Security. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Jeff to you, and I will now turn this over. Please be cyber savvy.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming, and thank you for coming online. I apologize for my voice. I'm coming off of a little bit of a sickness, so if I sound different, sorry. So today's topic is on password security. So I'm going to be going over a few different things and some of our recommendations as well, and at the end we'll have a little demo as well for actionable items even coming out of the meeting today. So like I said, my name is Jeff Gouge. Our security team is mostly up here. I'll be doing most of the presentation, and once the questions start coming at the end, I'll probably let most of the team speak to those questions, and I can answer some as well. But we'll kind of share the load at the end. So if anybody has any questions, type them in the chat, and we also have an audience here as well. So we'll probably take those first, I'm guessing, and then go to the chat after. All right. So passwords. Why do we need passwords? So passwords, really what they're there for is to validate somebody online. So if you, for example, were to walk in your bank, you could validate yourself with your ID, and you're physically there. So that's why you could do a transaction at a bank. But online, you may not be that. I could pretend like I can be whoever I want. I know Jeff's name and I know Nate's name, so I could pretend to be them and sign up for an account anywhere and then be them. So the password's there because it's something that person that's signing up for the account knows, right? So it is a value that can digitally authenticate your identity online. And like I said, it's something that you know. Now, something that you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be something personally that you know. And that's why this whole slide and this whole presentation is called password or passphrase security, is because really you don't want to think of them like passwords anymore. You really want to think of them as passphrases. And the reason that is, if you're here, right, anybody that works here knows we have, and I'll go over that as well, a longer password. So here at our UNF, actually, I go over that here. It's hard to find the word that's 15 characters long. So because our password policy here is 15 characters, passphrase makes sense, right? Instead of saying password 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and that being your password, or UNF, 5 times over, it'd be best to think of a long sentence, even with spaces in it and numbers, because length trumps complexity. So the longer your password is, the stronger it is. So if you could sit there and type a long sentence in your head, or just random words, like 6 random words that make no sense together, that's a perfect password. Here at UNF, we have 15-character password. I'm going to go into why we have that. Our passwords here expire every 180 days, which is just a little bit longer than a semester here. It's actually a little bit longer than that. And we do not repeat one of your last 10 passwords. So if you pick your one phrase password and you go to change it, you can't use that one for another 11 times when you have to go change it. And then we lock out after 5 bad attempts, and I'll talk a little bit about why we do lockouts as well coming up. So why 15 characters? Like I mentioned earlier, longer is better. There are some audits and some others that say complexity is better. Technically, if it's shorter and it's more complex, it would include a larger character set. So if you think of that and you're looking at your keyboard, the letters, A through Z is 26 characters. If you include the capitalization, that's 26 more characters that could be included. If you include numbers, right, that's 10 more characters that could be included. So if it's complex, then yeah, it might be easy. It might be harder to guess. But as this little chart shows down here, this shows you how long it would take somebody or an application, most of it's going to be an application, running to say crack a password of 8 characters, right? It would take 5 days. 7 characters, no matter what the character set is, it could crack it in like 5 hours. So why 15? I put this thing up there, it's a little technical, but Windows Legacy Landman. So what this means is this is how Windows used to store passwords. And why did we pick 15? Well, Legacy it's legacy because what it used to be is Windows would store the password that you would use on your computer. If you typed in if you typed in a 14-character password, is the best example, it would actually store it as 2 separate passwords of 7 characters in length. So if length trumps complexity, if you think about that, if you take your 14-character password that would take well over 4 million years to crack, and you split that in 2, and you have 2 7-character passwords, that would only take up to 5 hours to crack each one of those. So what we did here at UNF, one of the main reasons we picked 15 is because Landman only supported up to 14 characters. It would have to store it in a different format if we picked 15. So by doing that, anybody that still had a Windows XP client here running or anything, or Windows 7 still running, it would actually store those passwords in the longer format. Thus, it wouldn't be 2 short passwords that could easily be cracked if somebody stole your laptop or was able to sit at your computer for just 5 hours, right? Because if they were to actually be able to walk up to your computer and sit at your computer for 5 hours and you had a 14-character password, it's pretty easy to crack that. You can just sit there and plug a USB into it, a little attack tool, and it would crack that password, and then all of a sudden you would have that user's password. So one of the main reasons that was chose, not only is it 15 characters and long, but now Windows stores it in a more secure fashion inherently without having users have to do anything or save it in a different way or change how they work. So if you see here, this is exponential as it goes up. This little chart only goes up to 12 characters in length. So as you can tell, it keeps going up more and more and more. So 15-character password is very hard to crack for an application. These numbers could also fluctuate because different attack tools you've used. Obviously, computers get faster. Every, 6 months now, new computers come out, just about, feels like. Probably every day, it feels like. So they're getting faster and faster, so thus this time's probably going to go down. So the longer you make your password, the more words put together, or the longer the sentence you make in your password, the better. And that only doesn't apply to just UNF, that applies anywhere. You know, your bank website, Google's password, any password that you're using anywhere on the web. So I'm going to talk a little bit here about attacks on passwords. So password guessing is the easiest. It kind of inherently says it there, but what a person could do, or an attacker would do, is sit there and run an application, or if they knew you very well, they could sit there and try and type on your keyboard and just guess your password. That's why passwords, like the word password, which is usually number 1 or number 2, it's number 2 in that list, is not a good password, right? Or 1, 2, 3, 4, or just going across the keyboard with QWERTY, or doing patterns like that. Anything that could be found in the dictionary could easily be found with password guessing. Now, one of the reasons that we have a password lockout policy, which I put on here, is password lockout policies help slow down these type of attacks. So if your account would lock out if you typed it 5 times the wrong way and you were locked out for 30 minutes, not only does that slow you down, it also slows down attackers, right? So if your computer was here and you were trying to log in, because for example, somebody here was trying to use your account to log into the VPN, right? We actually see this now when our computers used to be open to the web. All day long, we'd see people trying to guess passwords all day long. They'd be trying to guess everybody's password on everybody's computer all day long, because applications can just run and just try this all day long. And if our password policy was short and it just allowed password or something easy, then those could easily be found over due time. So things to prevent that, we have a lockout policy, because then if the attackers gets locked out, then they're locked out, they can't try it anymore, right? Our Edge firewall has similar capabilities in its scan in the IPS side of it. Intrusion prevention is what that stands for, system, that could see those type of things where repeated login attempts keep happening. And if it sees that from somewhere else, then it's going to stop that after so many attempts, right? Similar to a lockout policy. The other type is password cracking. I won't go too deep into this. It actually uses hashes, because the way computers store your password isn't just, you have the word password, it doesn't store it as password, it stores it as a hash, and hopefully a salted hash. But in order to do this type of attack, you need to have the hashes. And I'll go over one way to get it. Another way to get it is physical access. If you can walk up to a computer and somehow get into it by using another mean. If you had physical access to that operating system or a different way to log in, you could get access to those hashes. Before I forget on this slide, I don't have a slide on this, but I wanted to talk a little bit as well about how you guys might use passwords as well in your browser. How many people in here have gone to a website and it says, save your password for this website. Would you like to save this password in your browser, right? I don't know if you know this or not, but that's actually stored right on the computer in plain text, where a simple one line of code could pull that password right from it, right? So, or you could run an application that would go, here's all the passwords that you've used in this browser since it's been on. Even if you turn it off and on, it's still saved, right? It's actually stored on there because it's there for convenience. Some of the browsers have gotten a little bit better, where I think some of them are starting to encrypt them. But by default, actually, I don't know if any of them are right now that I think about it. Chrome so one of the later versions might have changed that. But I know even this year, like I could go to a client site, right, and run this one tool, and I could find their passwords if they were using it for every single user that was on that computer. So that's something you also want to avoid. So if that ever comes up, we're going to give you ways to actually avoid doing that and save it in a different way. That's probably even more convenient than you're used to using it. It's another thing on here. So we talked about how passwords are something you know. One of the things that we are moving forward with here, and you'll start to see this everywhere on Facebook, on Google, any password manager that's paid, a lot of different applications on the web. They're starting to move to multi-factor or two-factor authentication. So what that means is not only do you need to have the password to log in, you also have to have something else, whether that be a token or biometric access, right? Something like your fingerprint. So the token or an app on your phone, the token or your phone is something that you have, right? The phone doesn't know your password. It's just something that you have. So it's a different factor of authentication. The fingerprint, so if you have a newer iPhone, you have a fingerprint reader on it. If you don't want to type in your password that you know, the fingerprint will suffice, right? It's a different type of authentication. It's a different factor. So the best thing to do with this is to combine these, right? And I'm actually go over that in a demo, hopefully, where our password manager that we support here, if you're going to use it, because it's open to the web, we require that you also use two-factor authentication with that as well, because it's accessing your passwords, right? And that's something that we also recommend. I'll put that, add that to this. Go through the security checkup in your Google apps, in your Facebook apps. They'll all have this. There's been so many times where I get called in to go to a client site, or somebody here and their password's getting compromised. If they had two-factor authentication turned on, even if their password was compromised, their account would not have been compromised. All they would have to change their password and then be able to get back in. Because what it will do, say it's something you have, somebody, if I were to give my password to somebody in China right now and they log into my Facebook, they still wouldn't be able to get all the way in there because it would prompt on my phone to say, somebody just logged in from China with your account. Is this you? And I would just say, no, right? And that's not me. And then they wouldn't be able to get in, and that would prompt me to, it would probably actually force me to reset my password after that. We'll actually, I'll have a, well, it won't show you too much from the phone side, but multi-factor. So we talked about the hashes and how physical access is one way that you could get it. Another way you can get it if you're an attacker, you don't even have to be there. Public breaches. If you go to either one of the two sites that I have on this slide, or many other, this is just one that, so Have I Been Pwned is pretty, they actually just started keeping the hashes as well and the usernames of those breaches that are released. So attacker goes on the web and breaches LinkedIn, Target, Equifax, Equifax, that's what it is. Any of those, right? Those are attacked, and a lot of times what the attackers will do is release all of those hashes on the web for free. So if you were on there, that's how attackers could get your information. So what I advise you to do is to go to either one of these sites, type in your email. If you have multiple emails, type them all in. And if you haven't changed your password since the date those breaches happened, go ahead and do that right then. Mm-hmm. Or else an attacker will have that password pretty soon and use that to try to fake the identity of being you online. So that's another way that hashes could occur. So they could compromise your credentials if you use that same account, and I'll go into that. If you use that same password at UNF that you used on Google, and say Google got hacked or something, if you use that same password, then the attacker is just going to simply go, oh, well, they use that password here. Let's try their bank. Let's try their social media, right? Let's try anything that where that password could be reused. So if that password was, if you ever had a password in a breach, don't use that password anywhere else. right? So if you had a Target account and your password was, your first name, last name, social security number, or something like that, go ahead and change that on any other account where that password could be used, and don't reuse passwords. Another slide here on the importance of having a password uniqueness. So the first thing is reusing passwords. Anytime you have a service, it's very easy for a human, right? So I have a password. I want this to be the only password I remember, and I want to use it everywhere. That is the golden keys for an attacker anywhere in the world. Or if somebody wanted to try and impersonate you, if you use that same password anywhere, if they get it, then they can be you anywhere online. So that's why it's very important to make sure you use different ones everywhere. So even if you had a LinkedIn account and it got breached, well, at least my banks are safe, right? My social media, my job profile may have been messed up or compromised or something along those lines, but they didn't get into this. Patterns, so predictable patterns. I talk about patterns on here, and one of the things about patterns, I think I have this on another slide. If you think about it, computers are much better at finding patterns than humans. So if you think you're clever, right, and you looked at your keyboard and you wanted to make your password in a straight line up and down the keyboard because that's something you can remember on the keyboard where it is, a computer can do that too, but a lot faster than we can. So over time, that might be something that's very easy for a computer to crack. So that's why it's something to avoid, right? Same thing, the example here, something spring 17, something fall 17, right? If you did that here at UNF and you changed it every single time and it was predictable and I was a human or a computer and I could predict the season and the year that it's in, and that's easy for me to do. You can change it all you want, but then I know exactly what it is when that time comes. Using your username as any password. Don't use your username in your password. My name was Jeff and my password just has Jeff, then that's the first thing anything is going to try. Any human's going to try Jeff, admin, right? So some things that you buy, maybe your fridge, maybe a security camera, the Internet of Things, you might buy something that comes with a password like that. You'll buy it and the way to log into it is admin. Change those. Because if you can log into it like that, you're like, oh, no problem, it's easy to do. So can anybody, right? So change those, because by default, it's easy to do and easy to get into, but you need to think about if it's easy for you to do, that means it's easy for somebody else to do as well. Using common substitutions, so like a and at, computers and different types of attacks take this into account. So there's things called like leet speak and stuff like that. So a 1 or an L, if it looks like it, then the password crackers know that if it looks like that, then a human would try to do that. So they'll also try that same combination. So that's another thing to avoid as well. All right, so I told you about all these passwords, but here's the hard part, right? How do you remember all those passwords? So what we recommend, and a lot of others will recommend, are password managers. They'll help you prevent password reuse. They'll help you create longer passwords. You can make them as long as you want, as long as the application you're using supports it. And it's easy, right? So a password manager means you only need to know the password for it. And through the demo, you'll actually see mine. I have hundreds, I don't think I'm at thousands, hopefully, of passwords in there, and they're all saved in there, but I don't even know my own banking passwords. Like that, they're in there for that reason. I don't want to know them. I want them to be able to be long and complex and something random. And so even if somebody held a gun to my head, I can't give you my banking password. I know how to get to it, but I don't know it off the top of my head. I couldn't do it right here. So password manager is a great solution. We're going to go over 3 different types of solutions for password managers. And then down here was thoughts on patterns. I kind of just went over that on why you want to avoid patterns. So the first set of password managers are the free ones. So these are open source usually. 2 examples that I have in here, one of them that I use and I've seen heavily used is KeePass, which is what the screenshot is in there. And in the demo, I'll show a little example of what that looks like as well. These are usually, Password Safe is another example. Both of these are examples of offline password managers. So it's a file you have to save on your computer. You could do tips and tricks like using your OneDrive account or something like that and storing it on there. That way it syncs. So it's technically, but you want to make sure that your OneDrive is secure too, right? Because then you're putting all your passwords out there in the cloud. So you want to consider those type of things as well when you're doing it. But both of these are free solutions. and they run on a computer. KeePass, I don't know if password safe. KeePass does have a mobile app as well, but once again, it's only stored on your phone, right? It's not synced with anything. So if you change the password on your computer until you downloaded that new file, it wouldn't sync across. I think password safe's the exact same way. The second category are paid password managers. These, you pay, it's usually a small fee. I think LastPass is $22 or $24 now a year. But what they really give you is that synchronization. So they have an app as well, but all of these are stored online. They also, a lot of these will have browser extensions. So if you're using your browser, you can just go up top and you could just click it and your forms would automatically be filled out. So it would know if you went to Facebook, it would fill in, it would grab your Facebook credentials from LastPass and throw them in there for you. And then you just hit login. Essentially doing the same thing the browsers do right now, but in a more secure fashion. So I put a little, so LastPass is a good example of that, and 1Password is another one. There's a bunch of these in the market. Some of the other things these give you, like I mentioned, is two-factor authentication. So because it's your passwords and they're sensitive in nature, if you just had it by 1Password, it would be better to have a password and protecting it by your phone. So if I sat here and Jeff were to try to log into my LastPass, I would get an alert that said somebody else has tried to access your LastPass on a different device. The last one, and the one that is newer here to UNF, is ManageEngine's Password Manager Pro. This is a product that we bought here at the university, and we've been rolling it out. It actually has two sides of it. This is the first time we're ever making it available upon request to everybody. The other side that we've been mostly dealing with is the enterprise side. And that is also if you have a department or something that would have it used to have, they have shared passwords, you guys use a bunch of websites or something like that. That's also a use case of this. And we can work with you in your department on how to get those passwords in there and start sharing them with your team in a secure manner. Instead of putting them, for example, in an Excel file out on the drive where anybody could log into it, right? This is a way better solution than however, or a note on your phone or something that this is a much better solution for that. In short, we call it Passman. That's the link for it as well. Passman, Password Manager, passman.unf.edu. If you're on the chat right now or try to do it later, make sure you note that HTTPS. You don't put that in there, it won't come up. You need to make sure you put that HTTPS:// in front of it. And this is free to employees. And like I said, available upon request. At the end of the slides, I'll have a little contact slide, but you could contact IT security at unf.edu and we can work with you on getting you set up, even if it's just for personal. So even if it's just for personal. The side, like I said, we've been dealing with is the enterprise side. I'm gonna have a little demo here, hopefully right now, on the personal side as well, and how you could just use that for your own personal needs as well. And this is available on and off campus. So I'm actually, before we get into that, I'm going to try to do a demo on here. So we're going to flip over. Let's see how well this works. Here, actually, right on here, so you can't see it. I guess I should show you what I'm doing. I'm just going to pull up the stream. We'll see how well this goes. Streaming from your computer, right? All right. Let this load up. Oh, it's probably just we're not talking. Yeah, it's easily talking now. All right. Share is now loading. Yep, there it goes. Just behind a second. There we go. So it's a little hard for y'all in the room here, This is the screen that you'll be presented with if you go to that link that I put in there, the passman.unf.edu. And this is how you'll log in. So after you request it from us, it's just like you log into your computer. It's the same in number and same password. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. We can my phone real quick. I think I'll need that. Oh, never mind. Oh yeah, good point. So this is being recorded, so you guys can go back and watch this as well. That screen that it flashed to there, right now I have that saved, but that screen that flashed would be the second factor authentication. So the first time you do that, it will give you 3 options. Because when you sign up for this, you'll also be signing up for Duo, which will give you your account so you can have an app on your phone, or you can just have it call your work number or text you as well. Those are the 3 options you have, but it's much easier. It's called send a push, and that push notification would actually just go right to my phone, and I'd get somebody just logged in as you. Do you accept or deny? And I hit accept, and it would just log you right in. So that was that white screen that it went to right before here. The first screen you see here is actually the enterprise side of the application. As a user, you'll only see the enterprise or the personal tab. I'm going to go ahead and show the personal tab. Now, when you first time set this up, there's 3 options you have. Basically, you could share the password. So you could just, if you log into this, that's all you need and you're on the personal side. Or like I did, I set up my own password. So even though I'm logged in, to get into my personal side of apps, I need to have my password. And I did this for this one as well, just to show you another example of the free tool that I have, which is KeePass. So this is KeePass. I'm gonna wait a second just so it catches up in here. This was one of the examples of the free password managers. This was the one that I used before we had UNF's password manager here on campus. So if you were to go look at mine, it is massively long. Like if I just go to internet, right, here's all my different 134 different websites that I have accounts for. But all it is very simple. You add an entry in here, and all I did was organize it on the left. And I would just put what it is. So I could put sample, I could put Facebook, what my username is for that site, and what my password is hidden right there. The other cool thing about this, and all the paid ones do this as well, is if you wanted to put this into an application, you could actually copy and paste from this and it would automatically fill in the form field in your browser. So I'll show that real quickly here actually. So I'm gonna go to Passman, and this is my personal encryption key. And I'm gonna copy that password. About 5 seconds behind me on the, now that is copied, I'm just gonna paste that in there. I don't even know what that password is, it's just random. And then you would have your personal KeePass here, online and available from anywhere. So there's my bank one as well. You could organize it all any way you want. You could add new categories. You could add new accounts under here. So we could do, I could add another account on here and just call it Facebook. My login, I would just do sample. The other thing you could do if you wanted to, you could type in wherever you want and show it here. Or you could actually hit this generate password button, which is the far right little squiggly, and that will actually just generate a random password for you. I'll hit save there. And then you could see what that password was and just copy it with one click in this application. There it is right there, and with one click right next to it, you could just copy and paste that into whatever browser. If you're in another tab with Facebook or whatever, you could just go right over there and paste that in. So that's about it. It's as simple as it is, right? You're adding you're adding your accounts in here and then using them as you're going. So if I wanted to open that, you could actually just open a new tab, go to Facebook, and then just paste that password and username right into there. And like I said, that's available upon request. So that is it for the demo. So I'm going to swap back over to the slides. Screen share. The file, right? let you. So that was it on passwords. I'm gonna really quickly. One of the things we mentioned. Oh, thank you. One of the things we mentioned on the Osprey update and in a communication out this morning, there was a very large vulnerability that was released yesterday. So we wanted to make sure we talked about that really quickly at the end of this presentation as well. It's been labeled crack Wi-Fi. It's a Wi-Fi vulnerability that was released this month. Technically, some of the vendors came out with patches earlier, but this is when it was publicly released to the public, was in October. So one of the things we wanted to make sure we talked about was that in here. It's a public disclosure. It affects all wireless devices. Technically, it's using the WPA2 authentication, correct, scheme, which almost all modern wireless devices use by default, because that's what's been recommended forever. So we use that here. We most likely you use that at your house. So I just wanted to talk about it. Really, the simple fact is you need to patch your devices. So keep a lookout, especially for Android phones, for your Apple phones, for Windows devices. Windows devices already had a patch released and available. So if you're here on campus, this would be a good opportunity to install it and reboot your computer. Right, so go ahead and do that as soon as possible if you haven't done so. At the end of the day today is probably perfect. So that patch is already out there, but it's probably waiting on you to reboot if it's here, if it's a computer here. Same thing when you go to your house, all your house computers, you want to do the same thing. By default, your computer's probably already getting the latest updates. So just go out there and check for the latest updates and reboot it. Same thing for your phones. Right? If you have an Android, if they've released an update, it's going to come out there and it'll have an update. Go ahead and do that later on tonight when it's plugged in, or if you can, as soon as you can, as possible, fast as possible. Most of you as well, most likely also run Wi-Fi networks at your house. If a patch is released for those, for example, I have an Asus at my house. Some of you may have Xfinity or AT&T Wi-Fi devices. As those patches come out, log into them if you know how to. If not, you can most likely contact those vendors to see if they might be rolling an auto update into it. It might require something from you, but there hasn't been a whole lot of communication, I don't think, from those vendors as far as how to update that yet. But there most likely will be a patch coming up to go ahead and apply that. The other thing that you're going to do, so if you until that's done, obviously you want to make sure, and you want to do this anywhere you can, ensure you're using websites with HTTPS. Right, use the secure versions of the website. So if there's an option for a secure version of the website, use that. Even unf.edu, www.unf.edu, you can use with HTTPS if you wanted to. There's nothing really confidential about logging into that and browsing the web, unless you're editing content, but that forces you to do so when you do that way. So we just wanted to talk a little bit about that, and some questions might come up, and we'll answer those as coming through as well.
Would you like to answer a few questions now?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
That's kind of the questions.
We have a question from Walt. Can user passwords be exported?
Users' passwords be exported from?
Walt, if
yes.
you can answer right, yes. Okay.
Yeah. No, the answer is yes. So the from what? So the free password managers have a way to export passwords from any of those passwords. Any of the paid password managers, they have a way to export from Passman. Yes, they can be exported as well. We could do it, and I don't know if there's a button in the GUI for exporting the personal side of the passwords. I don't remember if there is one. There most likely is, but we could do it as well. We have ways that we could probably export those passwords from there. Now, if on the password side, on the personal side, if you use your own password and you lose that, we cannot get into it. So if you noticed in the demo, I had my own password. That means that I'm putting the onus on me, and if I lose that password, then even us can't help you, right? So it's an extra layer of security, but there is that caveat, right? It's just like if you were to use KeePass, and easier to forget the one password to get into the password safe, everybody else can get into that safe, right? So you want to make sure that's the one you know, and if you change it, definitely know and note it. But yeah, they can be changed. They can be exported.
You were mentioning there's the one password you have to remember. Is there a way to recover that through like an email or reset that password if you forget it?
There isn't with the free password managers, because those are on a file on your computer. With the paid password managers, I believe, Not LastPass? Okay. So probably not then for most of them. Most of the time when you're having your own password for your password safe, that is the password, right? And that is the one you need to always remember. Here, if you were to use Passman's password manager and you chose the personal side but didn't choose the create your own password, that one we could possibly get into as well if you needed to at the last resort by the vendor support.
So the reason for that is because that password that you're setting is the encryption key that's used to encrypt the file that contains your password. So if that encryption key was recoverable by the vendor, then the vendor could have access to your passwords, which would kind of defeat the purpose. So the idea behind having just that one password that only you know is that nobody else can get in to see your passwords. So that's the reason why they're not recoverable in that situation.
Any questions in here?
Any questions in here? Yes. Okay, well, we have one
Go ahead.
more.
Yeah, go for it.
We have a few more coming in very quickly now. Catherine Brown, yes, what will happen when an employee leaves UNF? That was also from Catherine and Walt.
Catherine's not allowed to retire. So actually, at this point, I don't think we have a policy on that.
No, by default, when an employee 2 years, when an employee leaves, technically their account gets disabled right away, and then after so many days, it gets deleted. Same thing happens in the system, so nobody would be able to log into it. We are going to establish our own retention policy on the accounts in there, especially for the personal side. But as of right now, they're still in there. We just cannot access it, right? So if it's a personal side, if you take your personal stuff and it's still in there, as of right now, we still have everybody's, but we're going to try to follow as closely to possible as the account retention cycle as we can. So after that, I think it's 45 days or something like that. Once that account's deleted, we'll also delete the account accordingly in every other system, including this one. Did that answer your question?
I have a statement from Susan Urbina. What do you mean by exported, like from PC to iPhone?
Yeah, so exporting, it could be that you're exporting from a free tool to a UNF tool. It could be that you're exporting from KeyPass to LastPass. That's what we mean by exporting. So what exporting means is taking all those passwords that you have in whatever system it is and putting them in a file to put them somewhere else.
I have one more question. Walt asked, can we back up our account data?
You mean
So
the password stored in Passman?
Yeah, those are already backed up.
They're backed up by the nature of Passman being backed up.
Yeah, so those are backed up in multiple ways. Even the event of total loss of power and everything here, we still have ways of getting those passwords for that reason.
I like Walt's questions. He make you stop and think. If anyone has any more questions online, please feel free to type them. Joseph, I have a question coming in from Joseph. Does Passman have a browser plugin like LastPass?
Yes.
Yes.
But so there's a yes, but it is there. It does not work currently with the Duo authentication. It's a bug that the vendor is working on, so it is there. But as of right now, it is not working in their current version, but it will be. That's something they've committed to. I agree, Joseph.
Joseph
I
gives a
agree.
thumbs down.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Susan Urbina, she states, how does one export? It's not the same as copy or paste, is it?
No.
No, the exporting is for moving from one tool to another. So that would be basically a bulk dump of everything in your password file into a flat file that you could then import into some other app. I use LastPass at home because I've had it for a few years. And when I originally was using KeyPass, I had to export all my passwords out of KeyPass, drop them into a file, and then I fed that file into LastPass, and it imported everything for me, so I didn't have to copy and paste every single one of my hundreds of accounts. So, because just like Jeff, I've got tons and tons of passwords in there, and I couldn't even begin to tell you what most of them are. I have no idea what my bank password is or any of that. I just know what my password is to my password vault from LastPass, and that's all I worry about remembering. He also mentioned about KeePass not having being a file and not having any sort of way to sync it. I will say that KeePass has a really good integration with Dropbox. And before I used LastPass, I used to keep my KeePass file in my Dropbox, and I had a KeePass app on my phone, I had it on my PC, and I had it on my tablet. So anytime I changed the password on any of those devices, it would automatically sync next time I looked at it from the other devices. So that actually works really well. It's kind of a poor man's cloud storage for it. I didn't worry too much about the security aspects of it because it is encrypted. The file that KeePass creates is an encrypted file, but there is an inherent risk that if your Dropbox was compromised, somebody could get the file and bang on it offline for as long as they needed to get into it. But there's risks with any of these password vaults, and that's just kind of something you have to accept or remember 300 passwords.
Oh.
So I'm loading up right now just really quickly to show the difference for exports. It's coming up here in a minute. We'll see.
Well, my own personal question, how long has UNF had our own pass manager, PassMat? How long have we had it?
About a year.
About a year?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Now I need to learn how to use it.
All right, so I don't know if it's going to catch up, but I'll do it on here and then it'll hopefully catch up. So just pulling a password is not technically exporting that password, right? It's still stored in the database here. I'm just copying that password out somewhere else on the computer. That's just copying a password. Exporting is when you would take all of the passwords in here, and there's actually an import and an export in this application, for example. And that would actually export it, for example, into a CSV file or some kind of other file type that you can maybe read with Excel or another type of application that could be ingested or imported into that other application. So that's the difference between exporting and not. But this will eventually catch up. Let's see if there's any more questions.
Okay. Wonderful, Susanna. Susanna said, okay, I'll ask for help when I want to export something. Thanks. That's what we're here for, Susanna. Justin Proctor, I use LastPass. Well worth the $24 a year. That's great. I'm glad you're being safe, Justin. Is there any other questions online? Any questions in the audience? Yes, sir.
If we get Passman from you all, is there a way to get it like on your phone, or is it only here?
You can get it on your phone. Yep. So you can do it on or off campus from your phone. Mobile app. There is a mobile app.
I have not tried.
I don't know if we've tried that with the latest version that we installed, but it should work.
Can you
How would
repeat that
how would
question for
do
Joseph?
Factor authentication if you have a cell phone. You know, if you're
It's a good
if
question.
you have Duo on your phone.
Yeah, it's going to prompt you on your phone, which you already have on you.
Repeat that.
Yes, I'll repeat the question. Yeah, good point. He asked if the Passman solution, was that something that you could also get on your phone, correct? And the answer is yes. So you could get that in your normal browser on your phone is the simplest way of doing it. There is also a mobile app, which I said we haven't tested the latest version of the product on yet, but it should still work. It will still prompt you for two-factor. It does technically defeat the purpose of two-factor, but it will still prompt you because your account is still mandated to do that. Because coming from a request, it doesn't know if that is really you or not. It just so happens you happen to be using your phone, which you already have on you. So it'll still prompt it, and it'll actually just, if it's an Apple, right, it would just be a notification up top that you would just accept, and it'd jump you right in.
You could also put the mobile app on other devices like a tablet.
True,
So,
right? It could be on your iPad, which isn't the device that you've associated with your account for Duo.
I
What?
believe we have one more question in the audience.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's say you have saved the password in your browser. How do you clear that?
Depends on the browser. There's ways to do it. Usually under each browser, like Chrome, for example, has the privacy settings that you could go through and clear all cache, cookies, browsers, and all the history. One of them should be passwords. Yep, that's how you would do it. So Chrome, it's settings, and then I think it's advanced and then privacy. Same thing for Internet Explorer, Edge, Internet options. They call it different things, but it's usually in the settings up there. And a quick Google search could also find that for you for each different type. I just happen to know Chrome's and Firefox's are pretty close to similar, that they're in this pretty much the same spot.
Firefox is under the
History?
history.
Okay.
Fine.
So if you go into the History tab in Firefox, then it'll have a spot where you can clear those.
Another question? I think that's it for our questions online, our questions in the audience. I'd just like to remind everyone, please review the cybersecurity webpage for all the activities we have for the month of October. If there are no more questions, thank you for this informative.
He's got some other-
No, you're welcome. No, you're good. That was it. Yeah, it's recorded. So if you want to jump to the last slide, just for the contact slide for later. I already went through questions.
There's no stupid questions.
There are
love
no
that.
stupid
There are no
questions.
stupid questions. Someone wants to know the answer. Everyone
Yeah.
doesn't know everything. Our contact information is itsecurity@unf.edu, or you may visit the UNF webpage at www.unf.edu/its/security. Our speaker was Jeff Gouge, and his panel of friends from IT Security were here. You heard from Jeff Whitaker. Along in the audience, we also had Monica Brown. And in the back, we also had IT Security Director, Robert. Thank you so much, Robert, for being here. Thank you so much for this presentation.
And Gunner Lake,
And Gunner, where are you? There you are, Gunner. Hi, I looked right over you.
resident Firefox.
Well, guess what? I am so happy. Thank you, IT Security, for keeping us safe on the UNF campus. Thank you for being cyber savvy. Have a good day.
Thank you.